David Lammy has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza during his first visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories as Foreign Secretary. "I'm here to push for a ceasefire," he said. "The loss of life over the last few months is horrendous. It has to stop." Mr. Lammy also urged the release of all hostages held in Gaza and an increase in the flow of aid to the territory. The newly appointed minister held talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority PM Mohammed Mustafa on Sunday. He also met family members of hostages still held in Gaza who have links to the UK. After the meeting, Sharon Sharabi, whose two brothers Eli and Yossi were taken hostage on October 7th, said, "Mr. Lammy promised to do everything to bring the hostages home. The UK government has committed to be involved in a process with all the relevant sides." In February, the Israeli military said that Yossi Sharabi was killed and that it was likely a result of an IDF airstrike. It is thought his body remains in Gaza. In his meeting with Mr. Mustafa, Mr. Lammy said the UK would push for peace and stability by the British consulate in Jerusalem said. They discussed the role of an effective Palestinian Authority in achieving peace, and Mr. Lammy reaffirmed support for Mr. Mustafa's government and its program of reform, the statement added. On Monday morning, Mr. Lammy met Israeli President Isaac Herzog. "It's important that, whilst we are in a war, that war is conducted according to international humanitarian law," Mr. Lammy said ahead of the meeting. "Of course, I will be pressing Israeli leaders on that subject over the coming days." The Foreign Secretary also expressed frustration over a lack of British aid trucks entering Gaza, after months and months of asking, echoing long-running complaints from aid agencies about deliveries being blocked or delayed by complex inspections imposed by the Israeli military. He said the humanitarian situation in Gaza was appalling, and that the UK would be providing an additional £5.5 million to medical charity UK Med to fund its work in the territory. After the meeting, Mr. Herzog said they discussed the supreme mission of returning the hostages home to their families. The Foreign Secretary made clear that his country will continue to work and demand for the release of all the hostages, he said. Mr. Herzog said he introduced Mr. Lammy to the family of Tamir Adar, who was killed on October 7th and whose body was taken into Gaza, and whose grandmother Yafa was taken hostage and released as part of the previous deals. He added, "The bonds between the British and Israeli peoples are as strong and robust as they are historic and impactful, especially now, in facing the challenges ahead of us." The Labour Party has recently faced a backlash from some Muslim voters over its response to the conflict, which many consider insufficiently critical of Israel. The new government now faces decisions on several key issues, including whether to limit or stop weapons sales to Israel over the loss of civilian life. Asked about the sales, Mr. Lammy said he would look at the assessment and the legal considerations. "That process has begun, and I hope to report to Parliament as soon as I possibly can," he added. He also said he would make a statement about the future of UK funding to the UNRWA, the UN's main agency providing aid in Gaza, in the coming days. The UK was among more than a dozen countries that suspended funding to the agency in January over allegations that several staff members were involved in the October 7th attack, and is one of only a few that are yet to restore it. Labour has also pledged to recognize the Palestinian state, though has not yet said when it will do so. Israel launched its operation in Gaza following last October's Hamas attack, which saw around 1,200 people killed and 251 taken hostage. Mr. Netanyahu has said Israel will continue its war until all the hostages have been released and Hamas has been destroyed. At least 38,584 people have been killed in Gaza during Israel's offensive, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. A UN-backed assessment last month found there was a high risk of famine in the territory, with almost 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of hunger. The ministry also said at least 141 people had been killed in Israeli strikes since Saturday. Israel said one of those strikes, which hit a humanitarian zone, was targeting a senior Hamas leader.